You're listening to episode 969 of the Father Bills podcast. Welcome back. This week's episode is entitled, Do Goldfish Have Better Attention Spans Than We Do? The homily is given by Deacon Brett Edmondson, our permanent deacon, and it's on the second Sunday in Lent 2025.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. I've been thinking about the words of our opening prayer. I know we kind of blow right through that quickly sometimes and don't really pay attention, but for whatever reason, they kind of caught my attention this week. So this is what we prayed. O God, who have commanded us to listen to your Son, nourish us inwardly by your word, that with spiritual sight made pure, we may behold your glory. That with spiritual sight made pure, we may behold your glory. So I'm not sure about you, but what I hear in that is that spending time with the Lord, listening to his voice, has the power to sharpen our vision, if you will, so that we see the world in a deeper and richer and more meaningful way. You know, this old way of seeing the world, this paradigm of a flat and mechanical and purely material universe, is really passing away. In fact, in the sciences, it's been passing away for decades, and it's just taking popular culture a while to catch up. The truth is that there's much more to the world than what we can see on the surface. So not so long ago, and even today in most places, experiences such as Abraham's in our first reading, or the disciples on Mount Tabor, those wouldn't have been considered uncommon. They wouldn't have been dismissed as fairy tales. Reality is shot through with meaning and with purpose, and for those with eyes to see, even the glory of God. Even the glory of God. But seeing it requires that we slow down and allow God to reveal it. Somebody, I don't remember who, but somebody once said that hurry is the great enemy of the spiritual life. Hurry is the great enemy of the spiritual life. Isn't that interesting? Not sin, not temptation, hurry. Corrie ten Boom said that if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. Carl Jung went even further. He said, hurry isn't just of the devil, it is the devil. I think both were onto something. God's voice is deep and it's subtle and it's often very interior. And unfortunately, there is no interior life when we're pathologically busy and distracted, which for many of us is most of the time. So just to illustrate this, I came across some fun and, in a way, maybe sobering statistics this week. Just check these out and see what you think. So today, most of us consider it a luxury to get 7 hours of sleep a night, right? Wouldn't that be great if you got 7 hours every night? Guess how much sleep the average person got just a century and a half ago before the invention of the electric light bulb? Any guesses? 11 hours of sleep. Can you imagine that? I don't even know if I could sleep out of 11 hours in a row anymore, right? 11 hours. All right, that's just the beginning. Wait, there's more. So in 1967, the U.S. Senate was told that by 1985, the average American would be working, get this, 22 hours a week for 27 weeks a year. I want some of that.
Hey, you know, people think we only work 1 day a week anyway, so...
Well, that's true, yeah. Maybe I don't want some of that.
Not changing your job description. Sure.
It's funny because the main problem they thought Americans would be facing, too much leisure. How many of us, even 60 years later, how many of us think we have too much leisure in our lives, right? Okay, number 3. A recent study found that the average iPhone user spends over 2.5 hours a day on their phone, touching it a total of 2,617 times. So we're giving over 10% of our lives to our phones. And by the way, apparently that's just for the average user. If you're a millennial, you need to double that number, at least. But this is my favorite. Get this. All this busyness and stimulation is doing a number on our attention span. So way back in 2000, before the digital revolution, the average American's attention span was 12 seconds. So nothing to write home about, right? Guess what it is today? 8, well, it might be 2 for some of us. The average is 8 seconds. 8 seconds. Now, guess what the average attention span of a goldfish is? 9 seconds. It's not good when you're losing to goldfish, friends. It's not. So you get the point. The danger with all of this is that with all that we're trying to cram into our lives, we never really learn to live. So we end up agitated and anxious and exhausted and, in the end, cut off from the voice of the one who really wants to lead us into the fullness of life. On top of that, we become superficial. Our outlook becomes superficial because when there's constant turbulence in our life, we never see beneath the surface. Now, it would be easy to say we all just need to slow down and give more time to prayer, and that would be great, but we're not monks. We all have families and jobs and commitments. An hour of day for quiet contemplation would be wonderful. Heck, even 30 minutes a day would be great. But for most of us, that's an awfully high bar. So, what to do? Well, here's what I suggest. Start small. Start with small sips. Father Columba Jordan notes that most of us have little pauses in our day that pop up naturally. So maybe we're stopped at a stoplight, or we're waiting for the kids to get out of practice, or, we're starting our day with our morning offering, or we're standing in line at insomnia. None of this Starbucks slumming, guys. Okay. Those are the little pauses, he says, when we can practice turning our attention inwardly to God for just a minute or so, even just 30 seconds, and then to listen, and then to listen. So I started doing this, and when I do it, I just try and do it really simply, honestly. I just turn my attention inward, and I just say, "Hi, Lord," and then I listen. That's it. That's all there is to it. And it's not much at first, but when you make this a habit, you do start to notice things, right? You start to get hints of God's voice, right? So he'll send an idea or a thought or a movement of the heart. Or sometimes this will happen, he'll send a little nudge to pay attention to something, or to pray for someone, or to be grateful for something, or a prompt to reach out and offer to help someone. So just this week, I had that happen. A friend asked me for a favor, and it was something that I really didn't have time for. I had my own plans in place, and I didn't want to set them aside. It was inconvenient. I was tired. I was grumpy. But in all of that, a thought floated up to the surface, and it was this: Brett, will you give me this? Will you give me this? And so I stopped, and then I said, "Shucks." I didn't say shucks. "Fine, I'll do it, Lord." And truthfully, it wasn't very fun. There were a million other things I would have rather have done. But, there was an interior sense that this was the right thing to do, and it helped a friend, and it was probably way more meaningful than anything I had planned. And in the end, I hope God was pleased. So friends, we can live our lives as a monologue, as if we're the center of the world and our lives are all about us, and autonomy and comfort and pleasure and things like that are the supreme values. Or we can live our lives for God, as if the meaning and purpose of our lives aren't something that we create, but something that we discover, a gift from God, something he reveals to us as we learn to talk not just to him, but talk with him. And I can assure you, the latter is a profoundly more meaningful and satisfying and even exciting way to live your life. So this week, everybody, pay attention to God. Look for those little pauses and practice listening for God's voice.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Father Bills podcast. As I was kind of joking, you noticed I kind of chuckled in there when Deacon Brett was talking about how few hours potentially some think that ministers work. And I kind of chimed in with, yeah, sometimes people think we work 1 day a week because that's sometimes all they see of us, right? Of course, that is not the case. There's actually many times when the ministers, especially ordained ministers and lay ministers, are working 12-hour days for days on end, and we got to be careful about that. And it can really run us down. I think the case in point was about 3 weeks ago or so. I came down with COVID, and it was mild, but the problem was right before I got this, and it was funny because I was raring to go, and then I got a cold, and I had a lot of things coming up in the weekend, and that Wednesday, it really hit me, and I had to contact whoever I could because I had 2 funerals to do in the next 3 days. I had 3 masses. I had confessions. I was going to take the place of one of the priests in a neighboring parish because he was on a vacation, and I couldn't do any of that. So I'm very grateful that I was able to make some calls and get some of my retired priests together to help me out, neighboring priests that were still, weren't on vacation, and help me out. And I was able to solve it all. But that really kind of stopped me in my tracks and helped me to rest. And that just reminded me of what I need to do for Lent and maybe continue on. And that is to get more sleep. I often stay up late. I'm a late night person, but I've also been getting up early. And so the combination of those things don't go together. So I need to do something. So last year I decided I was going to get to bed at 10 o'clock in the evening. And this year I'm going to get to bed at 9:30 at night so that I can get even more rest. So here's how I'm doing it. You may want to try this if you have this kind of stuff, but I have a smart home, or in other words, I have purchased, for example, smart plugs, and I have many of the lights in the house connected to those plugs. And so I have it programmed so that at 9:20 p.m., almost all of the lights go out, no matter where they are, except for a couple. And of course, the TV I might be watching, that doesn't go off quite yet. That's 9:20, but at 9:30, everything goes off, and my bedroom light automatically turns on. So it's kind of like pointing me the way. Go to bed. And I have found already that I am more awake, I am more rested, I am listening better, I think I have more cognitive abilities, and that's an important thing because, ministry can be very stressful, and one of the symptoms of stress is forgetfulness. That happens to me, I must admit, and I can already tell that it's a little better, I'm a little sharper. And that's good. That's good. So you might think about something like that for yourself. That may or may not be something that works for you, but it's certainly something that I know I need to do. And it's not just for me, it's for the ministry. It's so I can help people and be more present to them and offer my best to them in their time of need. Folks, this ends my the homily podcast. Next week, Father Anthony will be on board. And then I'll be 2 weeks from now. Then I'll be up, and I will then talk to you. Not just 2 weeks from now, but I'll talk to you next week with Father Anthony's homily. God bless you, and take care. Bye bye.